Hello everyone, welcome to our channel, and we are learning science, grade 5, chapter number 1, the circulatory system. In the previous video, we had studied about the definition of circulatory system, different parts of the circulatory system, that's heart, blood vessels and blood. And we also discussed briefly about human heart. In this lesson, we will study about the structure of the heart. Structure of the heart. The heart is divided into 4 chambers. Upper 2 chambers are called auricles or atria, and the singular is atrium. So if you're calling or naming both the chambers, then it's auricle, and if you just want to refer to the one single part of it, then you will call it as atrium. For example, right atrium, left atrium. The lower 2 chambers are called ventricles. So heart is divided into 4 chambers. Upper 2 chambers are auricles and the lower 2 chambers are ventricles. So this is the diagram or the picture of the heart, and with the help of this picture I am going to explain you about auricles and ventricles. Where are they and what are their functions? How are they useful to us? So this part is left atrium and this one is right atrium. So these upper 2 chambers are auricles. The plural form of atrium is auricle. This is left ventricle and this one is right ventricle. So these are the 4 chambers of the heart. Left atrium, right atrium, left ventricle and right ventricle. So what's the function of left atrium? It receives oxygen-rich blood from the lungs. So from lungs, the oxygen-rich blood goes to left atrium. Or you can also call it as pure blood, which has to be supplied to all parts of the body. Then from left atrium, this blood goes to left ventricle. So this is left atrium, it receives blood from the lungs, and from here it comes to left ventricle. This left ventricle pumps the blood out of the heart to different parts of the body. Next is right atrium. This right atrium receives blood from different parts of the body. So it means the blood received to the right atrium is rich in carbon dioxide gas, or you can call it as impure blood, and it goes to right ventricle. From right atrium, blood goes to right ventricle, and this blood is rich in carbon dioxide gas. From right ventricle, the blood is pumped out to the lungs and it contains waste materials. From lungs, again, the exchange of gases happen. Carbon dioxide gas is expelled out and blood again carries the oxygen gas and brings it back to the left atrium. From left atrium, it goes to left ventricle and to different parts of the body. And from different parts of the body to right atrium, from right atrium to right ventricle, and again from right ventricle to the lungs. So this cycle goes on. Heartbeat. The rhythmic movement of heart while pumping the blood creates a sound, and that sound is called heartbeat. So our heart continuously contracts and relaxes, and this continuous movement, it happens in a particular rhythm and it creates a sound that's called as heartbeat. The throbbing feeling of the artery near the wrist is called pulse. So when you hold your wrist and keep your fingers or thumb on the vessels, you can feel the veins, you can feel, and you will get the feeling of a strong rhythm. That is the throbbing feeling. And that's your pulse. We can measure heart rate by keeping our fingers on the wrist. And do you know, students, during ancient times, and if in fact nowadays also, Ayurveda treats diseases by just checking the pulse rate or just holding the wrist, and we call it as nadi. तो नाड़ी देखकर आयुर्वेदिक डॉक्टर्स आज भी पेशेंट्स का इलाज करते हैं. How do doctors measure pulse rate? Do you have any idea about it? They measure with the help of pulse oximeter. It also measures the blood oxygen level. And you must have seen this during this pandemic in almost every house. So it measures your pulse rate and also the blood oxygen level. The normal pulse rate is 60 to 100 beats per minute. 3 types of blood cells. Red blood cells, that's RBCs. Then we have white blood cells, that's WBCs, and platelets. So all these blood cells have their different functions. Let's look at each blood cell in detail. Red blood cells. It is responsible for absorbing oxygen from the air we breathe in and transporting it to all the cells of the body. So when we breathe in, the oxygen goes to our lungs, and from the lungs it goes in the blood. And this red blood cells absorb this oxygen and they transport it to all the cells of the body. The red color of the blood is due to the presence of a pigment called hemoglobin. So there is a pigment in our blood, that is hemoglobin, and that's why these red blood cells are red in color. This pigment contains iron, and iron is an essential nutrient or mineral. It is required in small quantity, but it plays a vital role in our body. If there is deficiency of iron, then it lowers the levels of hemoglobin. आयरन की कमी की वजह से हीमोग्लोबिन भी कम हो जाएगा, और हीमोग्लोबिन कम होने की वजह से RBCs लेस ऑक्सीजन कैरी करेंगी. Deficiency of iron leads to lower level of hemoglobin, and lower level of hemoglobin leads to RBCs carrying less oxygen. White blood cells. They help in building the immune system. They fight against various disease-causing agents. So whenever they see any foreign particle coming, they start fighting against it. So you can call it that they are soldiers of our body. And finally, if your immune system is strong, this disease-causing agents will die, and you will be a healthy person. Platelets. They help in clotting of blood. Now, what's clotting of blood? Suppose you met with an accident, you got an injury, and it's bleeding. You got a wound or cut and it's bleeding. So that bleeding has to be stopped. How can you stop that bleeding? The bleeding is stopped by platelets. Now look at this diagram carefully. See, these are the blood vessels and there's an injury happened and it's bleeding. So, platelets get the signals that the blood is flowing out of the body, and all these platelets come and settle down from the place where it's bleeding. They settle down to the place where it's bleeding. And that's how they make a wall. This is called as blood clotting. They make a wall and stop the blood to flow out of the body. And that's how they prevent loss of blood. So that's all for today's class. In next class, we will discuss about the blood vessels and blood circulation in detail. Thank you for watching. Bye-bye.